And now, two guys who survived head trauma with only minor brain damage, Aaron and Jonathan.
Howdy, and welcome to episode 27 of In the Rabbit Hole's Urban Survival Podcast. We're your hosts, Aaron
and Jonathan.
In today's episode, we become gainfully employed. You are in the rabbit hole, safe and sound. Okay, so Jonathan is actually going to sound a little funnier than normal today. He is calling in via a Skype connection with a mobile hotspot as he gets settled into his temporary digs in Austin. Well, he works on a startup company, which will dovetail into the topic of today. But until we get everything sorted out with him, his audio is going to be a little squirrely. We're going to work to get that squared away so you get the same normal audio quality y'all are used to. Today's episode is going to be about finding a job, keeping a job, and creating a job if that is, in fact, the path you choose. Let's start with finding a job. In the past, finding a job was pretty simple. You opened up your local newspaper, you thumbed through the want ads, you passed out your resume. Maybe as time went on a little bit, I think at one point when I was a young architectural intern, I just opened the yellow pages and started faxing every architectural firm that I could find by resume, and even that worked. So a lot of things have changed, and in recent years, we've kind of come to a weird place in this weird crossover where finding a job is not quite what it used to be. But Jonathan, go ahead.
Yeah, I also, in the past, when I was looking for a job coming out of college, sent out resumes everywhere. People actually read those resumes. The world has changed, and now what we're finding is, while resumes are extremely useful and required, it's the social networking tools like LinkedIn, even Facebook to some extent, and even utilizing Twitter to get yourself out there, make sure people know what you're doing, what you're looking for. I was actually unemployed for a good period of time. I was doing consulting work. So I also in the past sent out resumes, and that worked really, really well. My first job out of college, sent a resume out, Compaq Computer Corporation, got a response back. It was great. Thought it was one of the easiest processes I've ever been through, actually. Saw a job opening on the internet or through a newspaper. You send your resume in, people actually read it. It's fantastic. Today, that doesn't happen. You send a resume in, and in reality, your resume is probably going through what's called an HR search engine. That HR search engine is going through your resume looking for keywords, just like you do when you're searching Google or Yahoo. And at the end of the day, if your resume doesn't meet all of the criteria in that search engine, it's spit out. And it may go in a file somewhere, but who the hell knows? That's the whole don't call us, we'll call you thing. But in today's day and age, you need to be thinking a little bit more modern. So I am not telling you not to do a resume. I think you need a world-class resume. But in addition to getting your resume out there, you need to be working face-to-face. Contact the people you know. Get in front of the people you want to work for. So this is critical. As you think about what you want to be doing in your job or for your job or what you want to be doing next, you have to be thinking about, where do you want to be? What kind of company do you want to be working for? What kind of boss do you want to have? And once you get a lot of that defined, I think you need to get face-to-face. So I was unemployed for a good period of time recently. I was doing consulting work, but for all intents and purposes, I didn't have full-time work. And I actually was using LinkedIn as a great networking tool. And I was using it as a way to keep up with all the people I'd worked with in the past. I have something on the order of just over 330 contacts right now. Those 330 contacts, every time they make a job change, you get notified of that. Well, somebody I'd been working with for a long time, or at least he and my career had crossed paths many times. I saw that he became the CEO of a startup company in Austin, Texas. And I didn't even think twice about just sending him a congratulations. It's networking, so you're not looking for something necessarily. You're just looking to keep contact and keep in touch with people. So I sent him an email just congratulating him and wishing him luck on his startup. And within a few hours, I actually got a response back. And that response wasn't just a thanks for the congratulations. It was a thanks for the congratulations, but I'd also like to have lunch with you sometime soon and pick your brain about a few topics that you might know something about. So I went and met with him. And within a few weeks, I actually had a job offer. That, I think, is the right way to get a job in today's day and age, knowing people. Now, you're going to say, well, I don't know that many people. Well, that's not true. You know a lot of people. You've built a network over the years, whether you think about it or not. And that network is probably pretty extensive and more powerful than you think it is. Everyone you know knows just as many people as you do. And every one of those people knows just as many people as you do. So when you start building your network out, you're going to find that you have hundreds and hundreds of contacts. So of my 330 something contacts on LinkedIn, the reality is I probably have thousands of people that I can network with just from those contacts. And LinkedIn isn't the only tool out there. I think you should also use Facebook. And depending on the level you are within your career, Facebook could be a great networking tool. Another tool to consider is actually Twitter. And while Twitter is, I think, the least useful of the three, it's really useful in one respect. One is that you can follow a lot of what people are doing. There's a lot of small startup companies out there posting everything they do, down to how many times they flush the toilet a day at the company. In addition, you can start posting things you're doing. You're sending out your resumes, you're looking in the following cities, you're looking for the following types of work. And if you have just a few followers and they have just a few followers and people retweet you and help you out, you could end up all over the internet very quickly.
Yeah, so, and there's just a real quick thing. There is tons of websites out there offering all kinds of free information on how to leverage Twitter and Facebook as a marketing tool. And that's what you're doing. That you are selling yourself to the world to find a job. And that's so when you go out and you look at it and you go, well, Twitter's stupid, and all anybody ever does is talk about they're washing their hair or walking their dog or that the dog is scratching a hole in the carpet like mine is right now. And it's another tool.
And by the way, Aaron just tweeted that.
Yes, of course. But it's about, you can't just jump on like everything else, like any other tool. Right. You can't just pick it up. You've got to learn to use it. Yeah. And to touch back on Facebook for a second, I mean, we've talked about LinkedIn, which is a fantastic tool from what I've seen. I've kind of been out of the normal job circuit for about the last 10 years as I now work for myself. But as far as where you are in your career path and stuff, your Facebook presence can be a tremendous way to find a job. An example is a mutual friend of mine and Jonathan. She was studying Egyptology in Egypt. And when, when 9/11 happened, she was, and even when the riots happened recently, she quickly got on Facebook, sent out a blast and said, I'll be back in town within 72 hours. Does anybody know a job in this industry? And within 2 hours, both times, she had a job long before her plane even landed. Now, she also had a presence within the industry that she works, so that was easier for her. But it's a network. Even if it's just a network of your friends, we've said in the past, there's the old cliche, birds of a feather flock together, and it works the same way with your friends. Some people feel maybe a little uncomfortable using their friends. That's part of what friends are for. They're there to support each other and help each other in times of need.
Exactly. And just to interject something really quickly, these aren't new concepts. So one of the things to think about is nothing we're saying is a new concept. And we're not trying to be Tony Robbins, is that the guy's name of the world? We're not chanting to you to go have better self-affirmation or anything like that.
Well,
what
I might.
We're saying is, Aaron might, but I'm not telling you that. I'm just going to tell you that keep in mind the networking that we're talking about is actually very, very old technique. It's the longest running way to get a job. People got the jobs, they did it very high. You always talk about, it's all about who you know. Well, it is. It really is all about who you know. But that's not a secret technique That's something that everybody can do. And with tools like Facebook and LinkedIn, you can actually do it better and stronger than other people if you just spend a little bit of time at it. There's a great book that I actually read that is called The Power of Who.
Which we'll put in the show notes.
Yeah, I can't recommend this book highly enough. I mean, we are putting it in the show notes, like Aaron said, but I think if you are either looking for a change in career, looking for a new career, or looking to actually expand your career and grow it, then this is a book for you. So basically, practically anybody should read this book.
What are some of the concepts that you picked up from this book?
Well, I think there's an overarching concept, and he kind of goes back to it enough times to kind of drill it into your head. And the overarching concept is that you've built a network over years, whether you think of it as a network or not. And that network is the most powerful tool you have. Because whether you know it or not, like I said earlier, everyone you know knows people. So if you make your network aware of what your goals are, your network, it's in their best interest because they care about you. So because your friends and family and everyone else you've built up throughout the years care about you, and to some extent they may have some self-interest too. There's people in your network who want you to succeed so that eventually maybe you can help them succeed. But it's all a symbiotic relationship. It's not a parasitic relationship in a network. And some of the things he points out are, if you use that symbiotic relationship, your network can propel you to great heights. And it's all about the people you know. And that's, Aaron and I talk constantly about the idea of community and building a community of people you trust and like-minded individuals. Well, I think that's so critical, especially if you think of your network as a tool. And again, the more time and energy you put into that tool, the more powerful it can become. So that's the overarching theory in there. And that's why I like to use LinkedIn so much. I mean, I actually try to get onto LinkedIn at least once a day just to see what's going on. And I congratulate people on promotions. When I see that people have lost jobs, I try to find out what they're looking to do next because I may know someone. Even the funny thing is, even when I was unemployed, I actually helped a few people find jobs. They weren't jobs that were for me. So in the end, it wouldn't have helped me to not help them, and in the end, hopefully by having helped them now, long term, we can have again that symbiotic relationship, and with their success, I'll draw more success and vice versa. So it's all about propelling your whole network forward.
And moving on to keeping a job and growing at a job, I think the first question that you have to ask yourself, is this the job that you really want? And there's kind of a few things that fall underneath that to maybe help you figure that out. Because most of us, our knee-jerk reaction is either yes or no. But at least to me, life is black and white. It's never yes and no. So first you have to weigh, are you happy? Are you content? And even that has some nuances we'll get into in a second. And the second part is, do you even know what your value in the marketplace is? When was the last time you looked for a job? When was the last time you really looked at what salaries or hourly wages were going for within your position level? And I want to make a note here that what we're talking about, it doesn't matter if you are the busboy at the local, well, Bennigan's isn't around anymore. What is it, Chili's? Or if
Oh no,
you
Bennigan's is back.
Oh, is Bennigan's back? Oh, that's completely separate thing then. But
exactly,
it doesn't matter where you are in your career. All of these things apply. And what we're trying to do today is really give you concepts to work with, as well as actionable information, so that you can take both and apply them to wherever you are in your job, and where you are in your job growth or your job maturity. So the other thing, the third part of this is network maintenance, and where does your network play into whether or not you're growing in your job and whether or not you're happy with the job that you've got?
Yeah, if you're not sensing a theme here, then you're not listening. But yeah, it's going back to the happy and content. We're not telling you that every day has to be sunshine and roses. Actually, it's quite the contrary.
Uh-huh.
If every day is sunshine and roses, you're probably not challenging yourself. A job is probably a great job is probably 80% things you love to do and 20% just stuff you can't stand. That's a great job. I mean, if you got to that level, then you are doing really well. Now, if you have better than that and you're actually making money at it, well, I applaud you and you stick with it.
And tell us
Good
what you
luck to you.
did in the comments section of the show.
Exactly, please. But the happy and content part is critical. If you can be happy and content, then maintaining and keeping a job is pretty easy. Because I'm going to go to an important bullet here around personal responsibility, and I know we were going to talk about that in a little bit. But if you're happy and content, you will do the best job you can to succeed. I mean, it's part of our nature as people. When you enjoy what you're doing, you're not going to be lazy about it. You're not going to lay back. You want to succeed, and that's one of the reasons you're probably happy and content, that you are doing well.
And there's some.
So,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
No, go for it.
Well, what I was going to say was there's some minutia I'd like to get in here, and there's this. I think for a lot of people just coming out of college or fresh in the marketplace of jobs is this concept that you absolutely have to love what you do. And personally, I don't believe that. I think, and like we were saying earlier, if you found that, that's fantastic. And at one point, I was in the career that I absolutely loved. I loved the field. I hated the job. And so that made it not worthwhile for me. And sometimes you'll find a job where you're content with the job, but where you have your passion is taking pride in doing a job well done, which is another thing that we wanted to get into, as well as Personal Responsibility Day, which is something that I really find to be lacking within most people these days, is taking even, and Jonathan and I were talking about it the other night when we were kind of working through the show, which is that it doesn't matter if you are scrubbing toilets for a living. Be the best toilet scrubber you can be. I mean, it may sound a little silly, but it's true. It's no matter where you are and what you're doing, be the best and put all of your energy, put all of your heart into it, and take pride in being that.
Let me give you an example of what that actually can translate to, right? So I'm going to take it at that bottom level, or not. I'm not trying to demean anyone's job. So if anyone who is a listener is a janitor for a living, I respect you very much, because honestly, you do a job that I can't really do because I'm just not very good at it, and I mean, you make my going to work that much easier. So, I mean, that at the end of the day, I look at every single job as being critical and having a role. But if you are, like Aaron said, a toilet scrubber, if you're the best toilet scrubber around, well, eventually, and again, thinking in terms of career path, if this is your goal, you could eventually manage a team of janitors. And then if you've managed a team of janitors well, you can be the guy who manages the managers of teams of janitors. And if you do that well, eventually you can be an infrastructure manager and be managing all kinds of things around a building as far as maintenance goes. And actually that job can translate all the way up. If you really are amazing at every single level you can go, you can be the best damn chief operating officer there is, and you might have started out scrubbing toilets. And I don't say that facetiously or in order to, make somebody feel better. I say that with all honesty, because if you really think about all the different levels that go up the chain, that's where the top would be. So if you really could succeed at every different level, I'm not telling you could. So there may be a point at which maybe your business acumen is not as good as the next guy. So maybe there is a cap to how high you could go. But, the sky is the limit if you're willing to put the time, effort, and learning into it. You can, who knows how high you can go, then it doesn't matter what level you start at. So I think it's that pride in the work you do that can drive you all the way to the top.
And people see that pride, and taking pride in what you do is almost infectious, I think. When you see a person really just going after it and loving what they do, everyone around them looks to that person as almost leadership, and looks to that person almost as inspiration. Some people may say, "Oh, he's a little over anxious about his job," but I think in a way, those people would just be are just jealous that somebody is willing to work that hard and care that much about what they're doing. So that kind of, I just wanted to make that distinction and bring in the topic of that taking pride in what you do is so important, and it's perhaps a lost ethic, not quite lost, but a seriously diminished ethic within the work community as a whole.
And I think leading into the next topic, I mean, I think that's one of the most misunderstood concepts in I have a job is understanding your value in the marketplace. And I think a lot of people sit there and go, "Well, my company's not paying me my value. I'm not getting my value." Well, all that's bull. I mean, the reality is the company sees you have a certain value, and if you don't think that they're paying you your value, then I'm not telling you to stay where you are.
Absolutely
I
not.
think the world has changed. I think the idea of people being at the same place for 30 years is fantastic. And honestly, I watched my father do it, and he was very, very successful at it. I wish I could do it. I mean, I really do. I hope that the current role that I'm in can take me that far. But the world really has changed, and the idea of corporate loyalty has changed very much, and so has employee loyalty. So it's gone both ways here. But if you think your value is not being met, then go get a resume out there. And then I'm going to tell you to kind of revert back to step one, which is the looking for a job. But here is an extra tip for those of you that have a job but don't like it or think you're undervalued. Don't quit your current job. 9 point something percent of this country is unemployed right now. If you are a listener of this show, if you think about all the people you know in your network, I guarantee you know unemployed people. So, one of the things to think about is if you currently have a job, the best place you can be is in that job while you search for another job. It is a proven fact, and it's been on multiple news shows recently and in the Wall Street Journal. But employers do not like to hire unemployed people, which, it's kind of silly to hear that, but it's true. A lot of employers have policies against hiring unemployed people. So I'm going to go back to all the stuff we talked about earlier: network maintenance, face to face time with people you know, social networking tools, getting your resume up to speed and just as sharp as you can possibly get it, and making sure that you've got it out there so that when you understand what your value in the marketplace is, you can go get the job you really want. The other thing is, don't just go apply for jobs. I don't really like the idea of a job search, at least at the level that I'm at. There are some people who, think it's great. I think that a career search, and actually, to me, it doesn't matter what level you're at. Think in terms of where you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Don't think in terms of, I need a job tomorrow, especially if you already have a job. If you don't have a job, you probably do need to do a little triage and think in terms of what you need today, and also think out your long term plan. But if you have a job right now, base every decision you make on your career decisions. What city in the world do you want to be in? What do you want to be doing in 10 years? What kind of house do you want to own? What kind of car do you want to have? How much money do you want to be making? All of that, think out as you plan out your career. I'm not telling you that if you want to make $1 million, you will. This isn't one of those rah, you can do anything in the world concept shows. This really is. If you want to be making $1 million, well, then you better think out your career path. If you're 20 years old and you want to be making $1 million and you think the route is reality TV, I suggest you sit down, slap yourself a few times, and rewrite your plan.
And something I'd like to throw in a story about market value and people's taking pride and everything else, and kind of wrapping it up a little bit tighter for you with an example. Somebody came. I had an employee once, and he was packing boxes in my shipping department, and I happened to be walking past him, and he was having a conversation with another employee, and I overheard him said, "Well, if they only pay $8 an hour, then they're going to get $8 an hour, Chris or Steve or whatever his name was. But if they want to see real work, they need to pay me to get $15 an hour, Chris." And later that day, I called him in my office, and I said, "Chris, I actually have no idea what his name is. I'm just using a name. I didn't even know you had a $15 an hour Chris within you. If you had a $15 an hour Chris within you, then it would be in your best interest to show me that $15 an hour Chris, and maybe I would be paying you $15 an hour Chris. Or at least I would go to you and say, look, I'd love to pay you that, but at the job level that you're at, I can't afford to pay you that. But hey, you know what? I've got a friend over here that owns a company, and he's looking for somebody with skills like yours, and he can afford $15 an hour, Chris." So that's kind of something that you need to think of. If you're not taking pride and you're not showing that you really do have the value you think you do in your marketplace, then you're kidding yourself. You're
Right.
and if and if you're not vocalizing it, and if you're not going to your boss and asking on a regular basis, what can I do to improve, or HR or whoever you need to go to, if you are not taking, which is going to lead us into a topic in a little bit about personal responsibility, but if you're not taking that responsibility upon yourself to be that next higher up salary employee, no one else is ever going to know. But if you walk around disgruntled and irritated and go, well, they're never going to see the next higher up employee value out of me if they don't pay me that, well, it becomes a chicken or the egg argument.
Right. And on the just to give the other side of that discussion about value, I used to work for a great boss. I'm not going to tell his name or anything, but he was great, and he came from a background where he actually told all of his employees that he expects us all to have a polished, up to date resume out in the marketplace at all times. And his reasoning was that he employs only the best of the best, type A personalities. And those people should always be looking for the next best opportunity. Not because that he thinks they should be leaving, but because as long as they're exploring what the next best opportunity might be, they'll understand that those are the next best, and that really the best opportunity is being on his team. And he was right. For a very long time, I worked for that guy. I enjoyed it very much. And having my resume out there always led to me understanding what I was worth in the market, because you get job offers. I mean, it was fantastic. You really did that, and you really were that type of type A person who went after those things while you were doing your job. You'd be amazed. The job offers do start flowing in, especially when you've got a job you love. It's amazing how you get job offers from other people. It's
Just
the
like
way the
dating.
universe works. It's just like dating. You got a girlfriend or a wife, all of a sudden, bam, everybody wants you. But or a husband or a boyfriend for you ladies out there. But that whole idea of always knowing what your value is, it allowed me to maintain a relationship with that boss so that he knew that I always knew what I should be making, and I knew that he knew that. So there was actually less negotiation between the two of us all the time, because on an annual basis, he actually evaluated me based on what he felt my current value to his organization was. And that was great for my salary, unless you were somebody who was getting diminishing value, in which case most likely you needed to reevaluate your own position as well. So again, it's that whole idea of the responsibility, and this is a good segue into it. The responsibility is on you. At the end of the day, you are the only person who is going to care about what happens to you in the end. Well, you and your network. But maintaining that network is also up to you. So again, all of it goes back to personal responsibility. I'm going to say one more thing about network maintenance. So I was talking in the earlier segment about how when you need help, you should go turn to your network. Well, for those of you that can offer help and have a network, you should also be looking at your network and looking to who you can help, because that's the whole point. At some point, you may require help from your network as well. So it's all about everyone elevating each other. And you will find that, again, your network is a very powerful tool if you utilize it. And that's a give and a take. So you got to give as much as you take.
Yeah. A friend of ours actually uses a term within our circle of friends jokingly about emotional and friendship bank accounts. And network maintenance works the same way. If you never pay in, it's very difficult to ever expect to pay out. And if all you're ever doing is taking out, eventually the circle that you're drawing from will cut you off pretty quickly if they see that you're not. So that's kind of perhaps a way of wrapping up the idea of why it is so important, like Jonathan was just saying, to be actively participating within your network and helping other people whenever and wherever you can, and not ignoring it. Now, I'm not saying to reach out your hand to that one person that just always seems to be in trouble or always seems to be out of a job. Those people need to, those people quickly themselves drain the friendship and network bank account. Just something to keep in mind. To move on to creating a job, and I think this gets talked up and hyped up, and I think John was even kind of like shaking his fist the other day when we were talking about entrepreneurship. And I think people rose color it a little too much and
Well,
sugarcoat it a little too
and just to
much.
throw something out there, I think the reason that is they see all those late night cable news commercials
Wait, isn't that
where
isn't that us? Isn't that what we do?
exactly. I mean, so, all these guys are like, "Oh, you can make $50,000 a week, and all you have to do is sit on your sofa and watch TV." And it just doesn't work that way. Sorry for butting in there, and you go ahead and get the rest of what you were going to say out. But
Oh
I just
no,
had
no,
to
no,
throw
no.
that out because it bothers me so much.
No, no, I completely agree. And I come from a very long line of entrepreneurs, and within our family, both sides, it's always kind of been you go out into the world and do something, find what you love, find what makes you happy, and do it. And at any point, you can come back into the family business. And that's ultimately what I ended up doing was coming back into the family business. And at first, it was just kind of a stopping point while I tried to do maybe sort out where I was going next. But then I ended up falling in love with the history, all the family history and all the everything that was there. But when it was a funny thing was all these things that I never really understood about owning your own business and running your own business, and maybe never quite understood as a adolescent and a teenager and as a young adult why my parents were always out, and but at the same time really loved what they did. And owning your own business, it can be just incredibly rewarding if it's in your blood, which is something we're going to come to in a moment, a cautionary statements for you. But entrepreneurship these days is really it's more and more difficult every day, and at the same time it's easier than it ever was before, because anybody can go out and start a website and put a business online, and there's a million and one things you can do online, which is much less expensive than going the traditional brick and mortar. But there are some real advantages within brick and mortar. But the problem with becoming an entrepreneur is you have to become the ultimate salesperson. It is the ultimate sales position because you're selling yourselves to potential employees. You're selling yourself to potential investors. You're selling yourself to a bank. Even once you're in business for 62 years, you will still, on an annual basis, have to sell yourself to a bank. And it's that constant selling yourself and that constant herding cats, as I often like to call it, of keeping everything in line. And, if, like we said earlier, we were talking about janitors. Well, if the janitor doesn't show up, it doesn't matter if you're the CEO. If you're the CEO, the people like to say the buck stops here. When you're the CEO, it really does. So if the janitor doesn't show up, it's you there scrubbing the toilets, emptying the baskets, or doing whatever needs to be done. And that I do that on an almost weekly basis. I've had staffs for my department as large as 25 people, and I've had staffs as small as 3 people within the department that I had up. And I can tell you that when somebody doesn't show up, I don't push it off on any of the rest of my staff to do. I get down there and I do it, whether that means packing boxes, whether that means unloading an 18-wheeler that pulls up to the shipping bay and the warehouse person is off that day, the forklift driver is off that day, whatever has taken place, I have to jump in and fulfill that role. You are, and I think Jonathan, you were when we were talking the other night, you were joking around about you're the guy that has to go get the donuts and coffee for the early meetings. You're in charge. It all stops with you, and it all relies on you.
Exactly, and I mean, I think the way to think about it is, like Aaron said earlier, the buck stops somewhere, and it's at the proprietor, owner, chief executive, whoever it might be. At the end of the day, it stops with you. And one of the things. So, just to give you a little more background on me, and Aaron gave some background on him, and I've given you a little bit, but I went from working for big companies, and about 3.5, 4 years ago, I started my own consultancy. I ran that for a while, and I've been in a few startups since. This is now theoretically, I guess, my 4th startup that I'm on right now. So I also have an entrepreneurial blood. And the first question I'm going to ask you, if you say you want to start your own business or even be part of a startup, what I would call an equity holder, the first question you have to ask yourself is, are you ready to be the next failure? Because if you're ready to be the next failure and that's okay with you, then hey, more power to you, because it can be extremely fulfilling, extremely frustrating, and remarkably trying. And like Aaron said, that at the end of the day, the success or failure completely rests on you. You know, if you're in a big company, actually, the guy who's the CEO of the company that I work for now, had a great comment. He was talking about successful people in very large corporations, and he and I both have been in very large corporations. And he said that, success at a very large corporation does not equate to success at a startup. Because in a large corporation, you can rely on a huge number of people, or blame a huge number of people, or hide behind a huge number of people. But at the end of the day, you have a big team. In a startup, you're it. You need something done, you get it done. You want something sold, you sell it. You want a partnership made, well, you got to make some phone calls. And if it doesn't get done, well, then you don't make money, you don't get a paycheck, and you don't eat. So, I mean, it literally comes down to that level of responsibility, which leads us back to a critical topic of personal responsibility. When you start a company, the buck really does stop with you, and you become responsible for so much. You're no longer just responsible for your own paycheck, which you are now. You're now also responsible for the paychecks of any employees you hire. You're responsible for paying your vendors, or on the other side, your resellers. You're responsible to your investors. You're responsible to a board of directors. You're responsible to the state because you got to pay your taxes. You're responsible to your accountant because somebody's got to get them your paperwork. I mean, it doesn't stop. I mean, Aaron, you know it. I know it.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's an endless list of who you now have. People always say, oh, well, when you work for yourself, you don't have to answer to anybody. And my response to that is, obviously, you have never worked for yourself.
Yeah, you'll never answer to more people than you will when you work for yourself. And I think my father loves to joke about that, was that he had a few jobs in college before he went into business for himself. And, he's like, yeah, I thought, I'm going to go into business for myself and I'll never have to take shit from anybody. He's like, I quickly learned how wrong I was, because then I had to take shit from everybody.
Yep. I mean, it just doesn't stop.
Yeah.
I mean, when you work for yourself, when you are supposedly the boss, you have more people you answer to, or at least are responsible for, than you've ever had before. And I think my father equates it to having children. I don't have kids yet, so I'm not sure exactly what that's like, but I think it's probably a similar idea. You just have a lot of them. It's a lot of mouths to feed.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter whether they're your employees or, like I said, your vendors or your investors or who they might be. It's a lot of people to answer to.
And the other side of that responsibility is when any of those people that you are responsible to do not follow through with their end of what they're supposed to be doing, you are now responsible to pick up whatever slack has been created by them dropping the ball.
Yeah.
Like we said, we were talking about a minute ago, if an employee doesn't show up, you're down there doing their job, or wherever, I say down, but it could be up, could be sideways, doesn't matter. Wherever, you're out there doing their job. If a VAR doesn't deliver, you have to hunt them down, and the buck stops with you. If whatever critical piece that value-added reseller or vendor or whoever didn't deliver, you've got to explain to your customers that now you don't have that product to sell them, or now it's delayed, or whatever it's going on. And when it comes to investors, they don't, they do not care what your excuse is, and that's just it. Any reason that the goals were not achieved is an excuse. It's not an answer. It is just an excuse.
Steve Jobs, I know most of you know who he is, but I'll tell you anyway. He's the CEO of Apple, probably going to retire soon, but CEO of Apple. And he has a great comment. And again, I am not insulting anyone with this, but it is a difference in roles. He has when people make vice president at Apple, supposedly he has a speech he gives them. And the name of the speech is "The Janitor versus the Vice President." And the idea behind the speech is that when a janitor can't clean an office, they have an excuse. They can say, hey, I didn't have the key to that office. And that's a perfectly good excuse. And as you go up the chain from that person within the company, the excuses start to diminish. And by the time you hit vice president, there are no more excuses. His point is that you've reached a title level where if something is in your way, get it out of the way. That's your job. Well, that gets even more extreme when you are the CEO or the person in charge. When you're the guy in charge, not only do you have no excuses, but you no longer even are allowed to try to make excuses or think up reasons. You just have a goal. And if you don't achieve that goal, you failed.
So now that we've thoroughly scared the crap out of anybody about ever becoming an entrepreneur, for those that haven't, there is truly a rewarding side to it. There is the sense that you are in control and have as much control over your own future as possible. You make the decisions. Like we said, the buck stops with you. So you're responsible. You're guiding things forward. Maybe you are working 12, 18 hours a day. Maybe some days 20 hours a day. I've worked a few 24 hours a day that I'd like to forget, but maybe I will never. But it is a truly rewarding experience if it's in your blood. And to go back to an earlier statement that what Jonathan was making is you have to be willing to be the next failure, and you have to believe in your idea enough, and you have to be passionate enough and be willing to dream. And it sounds a little cheesy, but it's true. You have to be willing to dream and be willing to kind of push off all the naysayers and say, I can do this.
Right. We didn't, the whole goal of giving you all the negatives is really to make sure you understand the difficulty of doing it. But one of the things that we've pushed all along in the show, and we've talked about this in the past too, with responsibility comes significant reward, at least to people who crave that responsibility. If you want that type of responsibility, if you want those types of challenges, then the challenge of doing this, the reward of those responsibilities is something that you can almost not even measure. You would be willing to give up 50% of the salary you make today in order to do it. Like I said, this is my fourth startup, and a lot of people would say, well, what the hell are you doing? And, a couple of them have been mildly successful, and some of them haven't, one of them particularly not. But at the end of the day, it's something I enjoy doing, and I love the fact that I'm at a startup. Like Aaron was saying, you work the hours you need to work. I've now been at this location or with this company now for I think this is the fourth week. You lose track of time when you're working hard. But I'm in week 4, and I haven't had yet a single day that hasn't lasted less than 12 hours in the office. So there hasn't been a single one that's gone less than 12 hours. We are actually recording this show a little bit out of schedule from our normal ones. And Aaron and I originally had scheduled to do this at 9:30 p.m. And we ended up not being able to get together until about 10 p.m. because I had just gotten back to the place I'm staying from the office. So, and this is a typical day for me now. But I can honestly tell you that I could be working 6-hour days in another job, and I would be miserable compared to what I'm doing where I am.
So you may be wondering, why on earth are Jonathan and Aaron talking about jobs today? Well, this fits all back into our brand of urban survival, which we like to call Survival Chi for those that are new. And what Survival Chi focuses on is community, health, and intelligence. But if you break down the health, you get mental health, physical health, financial health. And this is that financial health. Nothing could be more critical to your
And
financial
mental
health. Yeah, well, and your mental health, yeah. Than finding a job, keeping the job you've got, growing the job you've got, or even taking that big plunge and creating your own job by becoming an entrepreneur.
Right, and the other half of that is that we've been trying to push this concept a lot. Urban survival is not just about surviving the end of the world. It's about surviving every single day. You want, in order to survive from day to day, you want to have a career, something that's paying you well. If you want those food stores to keep growing, well, you probably need a paycheck flowing in. If you want your Bob to be the best Bob on the face of the earth, you need that paycheck to be flowing. And if you want to just be a satisfied, healthy individual who is a contributing member of your community, you need a good job.
Perfectly stated, John. And with that, we wrap up episode 27. Thank you for joining us. If you like the podcast, make sure to leave us a review in iTunes. It helps others find us. If you didn't, well, use the feedback form on the site and let us know what we did wrong and what we can do to improve in the future. Be sure to connect with us through Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and now the Urban Survival Forum through the links on the top right-hand side of the site at www.intherabbithole.com. Also, don't forget to sign up for the newsletter. By connecting with us, you'll receive updates about the site and notifications of new articles and podcast episodes. That's right, we're not just a podcast. Every week, articles are posted to the site at www.intherabbithole.com that cover all manner of topics relating to surviving in an urban environment, whether in good times or in extreme circumstances. Show notes are posted with each and every episode where we invite you to comment on the show and interact with us. From Houston, Texas, till next time, stay safe and sound.